Silent. Don't you know my name?
I'm Leah. This is ALLE.
In a lonely corner of South America. Back in the already distant 2015. I had only stepped in 0.2% of planet Earth. I still have a small bit of followers on social media and a small circle of friends in my offline life. However, today I'm reaching more than 30,000 ears. I've brought 27 incredible guests from various countries around the world to you over 26 weeks of season 8, and I share everything I know and have in my heart to reach yours. Welcome to the season 9 of DKLA. I'm Yalea, and this episode we are diving into the theme I don't know why chaos, courage, and cosmic passwords. We are thrilled to have a special guest who embodies this theme in both his personal and professional journey. He's a first generation Korean founder and the mastermind behind an AI social concierge app designed to take the hassle out of planning social activities. Growing up as an outsider and dealing with social anxiety and depression, he found solace in books, music, and the internet. Now, he's working on solving modern loneliness and boredom with his innovative app, Aidoo, AIDOO. Get ready for a fascinating discussion about overcoming personal struggles, the power of social connections, and the importance of courage in the face of chaos. Please welcome Eubin Kim. Eubin, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Eubin. I'm a first-time Korean founder that's building an app called Aidoo, where we take the work out of planning social activities with your partner or your friend. So essentially, all you have to do is pick the person and the activity, and then we do all the work for you in terms of suggesting a location and then scheduling it as well. And it's formed by a lot of my life experience, which we'll get into this podcast. But our mission is to fix loneliness and boredom in the modern age with fun social activities.
Great. And where can our listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the app, it's called Aidoo, AIDOO. Our
Mhm.
socials are AI. And then in terms of me, if you want to follow me, it would be a pun on my name. It's Eubin, EUBIN, on the internet. So Eubin on the internet.
Okay, great. So let's start. Dive deeper into our theme. I don't know why. It's chaos, courage, and cosmic passwords. This theme is on my blog. The name of my blog is Rice Mishap Cake Delight. It has nothing to do with food, but it has many of my thoughts, and it's more a diary with some philosophical and personal points of view. Because and why this name? Because um, the kitchen is a social space for me since I was young, and since I was a child. I stopped it and I started and ended all my family parties in the kitchen. And we
It's
talked
very
a lot.
Brazilian.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
uh, and uh, we talked lot about life and the other people. It was always personal talk. The food was the last of our worries, And I wanted to bring this ambience to my blog. After this long explanation, let's start about our personal journey. It must be really interesting. Can you share more about your experience growing up as a Korean immigrant and how it influenced your sense of belonging and identity?
Yeah, of course, of course. So, yeah, I came to America, specifically Houston, Texas, when I was around 6 years old, and this was back in 1998. So I'm a 90s baby. But yeah,
Oh,
when I
me
was
too.
growing up, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we lived in a great time growing up. I think it was a lot less
Yeah.
stressful back. But yeah, growing up, I was an immigrant, of course, and I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so one of very few Asian kids. And then I was also an introvert. I really enjoyed reading books, listening to music, and things like that. And I had a bunch of friends and like was in friend groups growing up, but I also noticed that I was pretty distinct. I was distinctly different
Mm-hmm.
from my friends. My skin color was different. My food was smellier, right? I remember, when we were at the lunch table, everyone would have their sandwiches or their Lunchables. And then my
Mm-hmm.
parents, do you know what kimbap is? It's like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's like the seaweed thing. And then I remember I was embarrassed about it. So I would like sneak my hand in my lunch bag and then eat it like this. So no one could
Oh.
ask me, like, oh, like, what are you eating? Why is it so different? I remember just, being just distinctly different from my friends. And that kind of played into social circles as well. I played a bunch of different sports. I was in different friend groups, but I wasn't always invited to like people's houses and stuff like that because I think partly I enjoyed staying at home, but then on the other hand, yeah, I knew that I wasn't a core part of the group, if that made sense. But I had a pretty happy childhood growing up, and then around middle school, I thought, I kind of need to get out of Texas for a little bit. I not that I thought that I was better than everyone else, but I knew that, maybe Texas isn't the best spot for me to like kind of follow what everyone else was doing. So I went to a boarding school in New Jersey. It's called Lawrenceville, and that's kind of when the immigrant slash introvert part started started having an effect on me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
because I was so comfortable staying inside, I didn't have I had like kind of like grown up with my social circle when I was in elementary and middle school, but then in high school things get harder, like there's like cliques that start to form, and then kind of the overarching theme is I felt like an outsider, right? I was just
Mm-hmm.
an outsider looking at people having fun, and I was comfortable being by myself, but maybe a bit too comfortable. So that's when I started developing depression, anxiety, things that come with that type of thing, right? So if you don't feel like you're part of any group, then you feel isolated and you feel like, man, like I'm just different from everyone else and no one really understands me. And that trend kind of continued until college. I didn't even know what depression and anxiety were back then. I was just kind of going through it and like, man, I feel pretty bad all the time, but I don't know what's going on. But then starting in college, that's when I started recognizing like, hey, like these are like real mental conditions that you should start taking care of. But then with partying and like going out and stuff like that, I I enjoyed partying, but I still didn't have like those close connections, and also just kind of developed an unhealthy lifestyle at college. And then, yeah, I think I just went from like my childhood to all the way through college, but I'm just trying to keep it short. But
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, my
Great.
parents one Christmas break, my parents kind of saw like the look in my eye, and they were like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you should come home for a year. Like, and at the time, I went to Boston University then, which was $50,000 a year. So it
Wow.
was a whole bunch of money. And me with like kind of indecisiveness, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to have everything figured out, right? So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I first got into college, I was like, oh, I want to write a book. So I'm going to be an English major. And turns out being an English major is mostly writing essays. It's not really like creative writing, which is what I wanted to do. And then I switched my major to journalism because I thought like, oh, I want to use my writing skills in order to do something that's like fun and be out there in the world. But then that was on the time when like journalism was on a decline, right? Because it's there's not that much money in journalism anymore.
Yeah.
And then and then I said, finally, I was like, okay, I want to make money. So I switched over to the business school my junior year, and that was fun, but I don't like numbers. Like I'm Asian, but I don't like math, So
Okay.
I'm kind of like a unique person, and not that unique. I'm sure there's a bunch of us that aren't good at math, but there's a lot of math, and honestly, it felt a little bit soulless. Like I've always been kind of like a creative person, like trying to make stuff and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So after switching my major three times, and then my parents looking at me, that Christmas break, I said like, you know what, I think that's a good idea. And then, combined with like my introversion and my depression and anxiety, which had kind of progressed all the way up there, I kind of did what a lot of like teenagers are doing nowadays, kind of addicted to technology, TikTok, streamers, living this digital life as opposed to an in-person life. And
Mm-hmm.
I would just be playing video games all day, and then just like turning off the computer and wondering like, what am I going to do with my life? Like I have to fix this. Like I'm not going to be, like 20, 28 and still like living at my parents' house, like playing video games. So after about 6 months of living as kind of like a homebody introvert, like addicted to technology, one day I was like, all right, like I'm done with this. Like I got to do something. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have Craigslist in Brazil. Do you have Craigslist?
Oh, no, but there are many websites very similar to sell and buy stuff. Yeah, I know what Craigslist is.
Okay, cool, cool. So on Craigslist, there's a job posting board as well. So it's like, hey, if you're interested in doing this job, then do it. I just
Yeah.
took the first job that I could find because I knew that would get me out of the house. And then after that, like I just took it immediately without vetting anything, and it turned out to be an MLM, which is kind of like it's slightly a scam. It's like, hey, like it was like a commission only, non-salary job, and the job itself was pretty funny. Like you have to dress up in a suit every day because you have to be dressed for success. But then what we would be doing is stopping Walmart shoppers in the electronics section and saying like, "Hey, real quick, who do you have for cable?" Right? And then we would pull out our clipboard and then write how much they're paying and how many TVs they have, and then trying to persuade them
Oh.
to buy direct TV. And yeah, not a very glamorous first job, but it actually was kind of perfect for me because I dealt with a lot of social anxiety. I remember the first lady I pitched was like, she was pregnant and she had two kids like screaming at her, and I like chased her down like the Walmart aisle like, hey, 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 can I talk to you real quick? And I was like sweating through my shirt and like stumbling over my words and all that type of stuff. But really it was that type of job that pushed me out of my comfort zone, right? So I started talking to more people, started discovering that like once you actually make people laugh and start building a connection with them, people can actually start liking you, right?
Yeah.
And eventually it just kind of progressed from there. I actually found that I have a pretty good gift for sales, just like getting, because I'm naturally
Mm-hmm.
curious, just wanting to know about other people and then learning about their problems. And then I think my entrepreneurial mindset makes me think like, okay, like how can I help this person? How can I make this work easier? And then more and more times I did that, I started developing more confidence in myself. There's always like stuff that I wanted to do, but then I always counted myself out, right? I was like, oh, like other people are made for that, people that are more comfortable or people that are more confident. But then the more that I started pushing myself, I realized like, hey, like you actually have some gifts in you that, you can develop and then you can share with the world. And and then since that first job, it's just been kind of a long journey and going after things that I want in my life, kind of dreams and goals that I want to accomplish, and then learning the skills through work or just through social life, and then making those dreams happen.
Oh, wonderful. Well, now I'm in the third season with guests, but the second one with guests, I can tell. There are three kinds of guests. The ones who I got some things in common, and the ones who I have many things in common, and you are certainly in this category because
Cool.
I'm also an introvert, and I'm also in my second career.
Hmm.
Uh, the the first one, it was I was supposed to be a lawyer. I was studying for many state exams.
Hmm.
But since you certainly know, because all the Americas are facing the same problem with political
Yeah.
polarization.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, it was driving me crazy, driving me mad in law. I wanted to leave that career, but I was very creative. But I made many promises to my family. I would be a judge or a diplomat. But well, I made the exams and I didn't. I failed all of them. I didn't pass them. So.
It's funny. My mom wanted me to be a lawyer growing up too. She's like, you should be in the courtroom. But you're right. Well, yeah, I think that definitely the internet has polarized a whole bunch of people like all over the world, which is very unfortunate. But then also the legal part is I think it's made for a certain type of personality, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes if you're not able to fulfill the creative aspect of it, then your life kind of takes a damper, right? If you're always like, I play
Yeah.
guitar, I make music, stuff like that, but if I had to be working in a law office to like 60 to 80 hours a week, I'd probably be depressed and socially anxious again, like
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely. And well, when I changed to study theater and music, I thought my parents would kill me, but I was almost 30 years old, and I dared to I dared to jump. I just
Hmm.
jumped into the art field. This podcast back that time was just a place to relieve all that creative power I had inside me. I wanted to show something to the world, and now 10 years later, no one would imagine I'm one of the most introvert people of my family, and um, I'm possibly an Asperger. So um, no one. believe I have a podcast with people around the world, and
Yeah, but
it's
I
working.
think I think on that though, it's like there's like introverts and like socially anxious people that are on stage, or they're doing podcasts. And I believe, everyone wants to share and connect, right?
Absolutely.
But most people think there's not a way to do that. Most people think like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to like follow this track. And many times it's guided by our parents, right? It's like, especially for Koreans, we have a lot of like safe paths that like, oh, your son is a lawyer, good for you, like that type of stuff, right? But then I think especially nowadays with the internet and how there's so many tools out there to kind of create your own unique position in the world. It's
Hmm.
you can find or build your own platform, and I think that's really cool.
Uh, um, yeah. Well, 10 years ago, it was just a possibility. Now is many people followed the path. I'm really glad to see how it flourished. And I also, many people also have a prejudice with creatives in general, not only people uh, who draw or make visual arts. Many people think, oh, I want to be an artist. I'm just saying, oh, I want to be a celebrity. I want to be famous. And this is
Hmm.
not true. Uh, well, here in my native language, artist and celebrity are almost synonyms. And it's
Oh,
not.
really?
Uh, yeah, among popular people, if I say, oh, well, I'm an artist, oh, really? What's your Instagram? Or, oh, have you appeared on TV? Things like that. But uh, to be an artist is to create something. It's not necessarily to have uh, to go to fancy parties or have many paparazzi around you. Nothing
Yeah.
like this. Um, well, let's continue here about. Let's talk about courage and chaos. It's part of our theme. How
Hmm.
have chaos and courage played roles in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I think a large part of life is just dealing with chaos, right? There's so much, like, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's always dealing with different problems and new situations and things like that. And I think there's, yeah, like it kind of follows my life story as well. But so after working in Houston for a while, I built a websites for businesses that made a bunch of money. And but I realized, like, man, like I've been living in Houston for like 4 to 5 years. I've always wanted to travel. So what I did, well, I had this dream of I've been on YouTube a lot, and I've always wanted to do this thing called van life, which is you buy a van, you renovate it so that you can sleep out of it, and then traveling across like nature and like national parks, and meeting new people and all that type of stuff. And I had that dream for about 5 to 6 months. When I told my parents about it, they were like, "What are you doing? It's like you're gonna give up a job and then just be traveling for like a homeless person, essentially." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh,
I'm." Well, yeah, you're sleeping out of your car, right? Not that like you don't have a bathroom or shower, but you're essentially sleeping out of your
yeah.
car, right?
Mhm.
And so I did that, and I had that dream, and then I told my parents, and at first they were like, "You're crazy," but then I love my parents because no matter what dumb ideas or dreams that I have, they're always like, "You know what? Even we're going to support you, right? And so I bought this van, and then my dad and I started building it out, and this was around November of 2019. So I spent a couple months like switching out the bed, building a plumbing system, solar panels, everything like that, and then just kept on renovating it. And then in March of 2020, the whole world knows what happened. But that's when COVID started happening, and everything got locked down, right? And
Mhm.
for at that time, we thought like, oh man, like I would check out the news every day and see like the number of cases and infections and deaths just kind of like going up and up and up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was supposed to like go on this dream of traveling across America, but then now there's this deadly disease that might kill me, or I might like infect other people. So like I can't do this dream anymore, right? So and that whole period was just completely chaotic, right? No one knew what was going on. No one knew like, oh, can I go to work today? Like, can I visit my family that's in the hospital? Like, it was just a completely chaotic time. So yeah, after March, I thought like, man, that's one of my dreams that I've been working on that just fell through. I can't do this anymore, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I was pretty down on myself, just staying in my room the whole time because of the lockdowns as well, and wondering like, man, what's going to happen? Like, am I just going to be stuck here, like in the house for like the next I thought it was going to last like a year, but it lasted a little bit longer than that.
Mhm.
But kind of similar to the previous story where, I just had like enough of myself and I was like, hey, I'm going to go on Craigslist and find a job. I actually
Mm.
got this tattoo
Yes.
right here. And I saw that to be, I did that tattoo because I was like, okay, it's been your dream for about a year now that you want to go in this van and travel. I'd never like completely said like, hey, like I'm just going to drop all my things and start traveling. So I got this tattoo, started saving up money, and then around I would say May or June of the quarantine, that's when I said, you know what, like I have the van, it's ready to go. You have the stream, you have to follow through with it, and then that's when I started traveling.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, in from 2017 to 2019, I was preparing to emigrate. Leave the country is the thing I want the most.
Hmm.
I still want. And, 2020 was like a punch on my face, or
Yeah,
on my stomach. It hurts.
I think I think the world got punched in the face. It was like a resounding just boom. Yeah, not a
Uh,
good time for a lot of people.
and well, and when everything reopened, it wasn't like a movie that we pause and play.
Hmm.
I had to restart everything from scratch. But during this way, I tried to be very philosophical, and I I studied a lot about Asian religions.
Okay.
uh, I became a really philosophical person. I have to say, because it helped me to first of all set a tone on my art. I could know who I was, and secondly, turn off all the pressure of age. I started with 31 years old, and now I'm 35, and
Mm.
everything is so slow. Uh, I had to unleash my mind from the family and society pressure about single women in the 30s. Oh, it was too much. And focus on what I want. And now I'm learning to reprogram my mind and, well, let things go instead of pursuing too much. I have goals. I still have things to accomplish. I still want to leave the country, but instead of pursuing, just to think about it, I'm just learning to let go with the winds and focus on live each day of my life, not on
Mm.
what will I do in 4 years, how old I'll be in 4 years. Oh,
Yeah.
I won't think about it. And it helped me. It was really helpful. It helped me to ease the chaos. My head is still chaotic. But
Me too. Me too. 100%. The chaos is actually in my mind. So, yeah.
uh, but things became easier, I'm sure. Well, and what advice would you give to others who feel overwhelmed by chaos in their lives, but want to find the courage to make a change?
Yeah. That's a really great question. I think chaos, like I said, will always be there, right? There's like the universe is chaos, right? There's this concept of entropy, which, things just start disintegrating, right? Um, and then and then I think you have to accept that as a fact, right? It's like if you don't do the dishes, it's not going to clean themselves, right? You have to go in there and then put them right, like return them to their clean state. So, in terms of advice, I think recognizing the fact that the universe is going towards a state of disorder, but the beauty of human nature is that we have the ability to set things in order, right? So, I think in my early 20s, I was, yeah, pretty disorganized, depressed. I thought, I whatever I do is not going to amount to anything, right? But that just that's just not a healthy attitude towards life, right? There are things that you can do that put things in the right place, and from the outside, it may be, making your bed or cleaning your room, but even those small accomplishments give you the sense of personal power that, like, hey, like I can make a difference in this small environment, and once you can take care of that small environment, you can expand it to the world. And also, along with that, I believe firmly that everyone is born with a certain gift or multiple gifts, right? And and people are always looking at, the famous or well-established people and thinking like, oh, like I I'll never get to that level, so it's not even worth trying, right? I feel like that's a common attitude due to social media and, comparing yourself to others. But by putting your life in order, right? By doing the work of, hey, like it's my job to discover my gifts, develop my gifts, and share them with the world. If you're able to follow that process, then you become more fulfilled. You become happier because you're actually making progress in life. And then things start lining up in the way that they're supposed to. But on one hand, if you don't do anything, nothing's going to change. But the more that you go after things and try to build something or express yourself or, develop your gifts, then you're able to contribute something that's of value to the world. And I think that, in a way, is what I'm doing with my life. Right? I've been through these
Mhm.
experiences, these chaotic episodes of my life where, like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, like I don't know where to go from here, but I never gave up. I think I have to give myself credit for that. I never really gave up. I'm like, okay, like you've had a bad day or bad week or even a bad month, right? And it would have been easy for me to say like, man, like, this is just going to go towards chaos, like that state of entropy, and things are never going to work out. But then the more that you keep working, it just subconsciously builds a confidence and competence in yourself. You
Mhm.
become like, hey, I can actually do these things. There's gifts that I'm recognizing about myself, and then eventually you'll get to a spot where you're like, I think I'm ready to share it.
Oh, that's great. Well, forget comparisons is something I try to do every day. Comparisons, I think, is the ugliest monster that walks around my life because well, when I was a child, I started I started reading and writing a bit earlier than other children. I was 2 years old, and
Oh wow. You should have
yes,
wrote a book then. You would have been famous at 2, a 2-year-old writing a novel.
oh, yeah. Oh, my life. I think there are 2 or 3 volume books, many stories,
Mhm.
and when I started going to school, I had some problems with teachers, and I was skipped in 2 years. So I was 2 years younger than my schoolmates. It was
Mm.
really a problem to me, and many of my relatives were envious of me. It wasn't
Mhm.
easy. They just called me genius. Oh, you are the genius. You are the smart girl. But
Mhm.
well, no one likes to to hang out with this smart girl. Uh,
Oh.
smart is boring. So it
Yeah.
was a
I mean, yeah, with that too, I mean, I think we're very similar in that way. It's like I got the label of being smart when I was younger, right? And it's because, things kind of came naturally to me. It's similar to how like reading came to you. But I think I think that's not a like when I kind of think about like how I want to raise my kids in the future, right? I don't think I want to
Mhm.
call them smart, right? I'd rather call
Oh,
them
me neither.
hardworking. Yeah, I think I think when you're called smart, you're just expected to do things very well, right? You're like, oh, like, you're smart, you can do this. Like you're supposed to get 100s or A's or stuff like that. But then really it's about the amount of work that you put in that allows you to get better, right? It's if you're called smart all your life, and that's kind of what not I don't personally think I'm smart either, by the way. I'm
Oh,
just a guy that's like working,
I'm
right? Working,
curious
but
too. So,
yeah, I think I'm just naturally curious, exactly. But then yeah, it's kind of like that high school college period where my depression kicked in. It's like, man, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of other smart kids, and not
mhm.
only are these kids smart like me, but they also work hard, right? And then I think like if you always think you're smart and then you think like, you're always going to do things well, whenever you don't get the result that you want, then you start doubting yourself, right? You're like, maybe I'm not that smart, or maybe, I'm not like what my parents thought I was like going to turn out to be. But anything can be solved with work, right? Anything like in terms of like, hey, like let's figure out this problem. Let's figure out the basics on how to solve it and get better at those things. Like those are the things that actually lead to achievements and fulfillment in life. But yeah, I completely resonate with you on that. I'm not going to call my kids smart growing up. I'd rather tell them like, hey, you did a great job on this.
Uh,
You did a great job on this. Thank you for all the work that you put in, and you're only going to get better the next time around.
yeah. Well, I'm just like you. I think if one day I have children, I won't call them smart. it's a label. It becomes a label on our head when time passes. I grew up with this label, oh, the smart girl, and then of course there was concurrency, comparisons, and they were saying, oh, my child is smarter than yours, and it hurted not only my parents but mostly me, because I was feeling a failure. I grew up feeling a failure, and this is not true. I just wasn't a traditional person.
Mhm.
Uh, art came into my life at this point. I think when I started writing a poem or drawing or singing something, all these labels disappeared, and things became so much better to me. It was relieving to
Mhm.
make art. I draw since I was uh, 7, 8 years old, but I started drawing what I draw today, manga, when I
Oh,
was nine. Oh. Yeah. Uh, and it was great to me. That was a great time because I could really do something without any pressure. But well, in a certain day I was drawing too much, and I would do the exams to university. Uh, and my father, I think he killed he killed the artist in me back that time. He told
mm.
me, oh, you are terrible at drawing, you are very
Oh,
bad at perspective. you are you're drawing just to go back to study, to be a good a good judge, and forget this story of drawing. uh,
mm,
since that time I blocked it make a blockage on my, and I stayed 10 years without drawing anything. I
mm,
was feeling a failure. I had this creative inside me, but I had nowhere to go. I just followed
mm.
alone.
Yeah, yeah, and that's tough to hear because what we want our parents to do is just support us, right? Like on one hand, yeah, it's like in terms of music, like my parents didn't like the music I listened to, right? They'd be like, turn that stuff off, like listen to Christian like worship bands and stuff like that.
Oh.
And you know, I understand what they were doing, just from my perspective, because they want like, and that kind of ties into the earlier part about my childhood. They viewed the outside world as kind of this dangerous place, right? Of like, you know, there's all this techno music, like there's all these like drugs and like crime and like not safe, and then in the house, that's where, you know, it's safe and comfortable and like you can get better at things. And we did a lot of studying and like Bible studies and stuff like that. And from their perspective, it's like, hey, like we care about you. So we want to give you the security that we know, right? Like we've been
Mhm.
through life, we've been through these different challenges, and like, I just want to make sure that you don't fall off and go into a path that might lead in unhappiness or might lead to, like, you know, a bad life decision or something like that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, that perspective I think is damaging because our stories are made in the outside world, right? Our stories are made
Yeah.
by thinking that we have gifts in a certain area and then taking a chance on that, right? And if
Mhm.
we're unable to take a chance on ourselves, right? If we're unable to go after the things that we want to do, then we become unhappy. We think like, man, I've always wanted to do this, but for but because I'm listening to what my parents want for me or what other people want for me, not just our parents, then you're living someone else's life, right? And I think now I'm at the stage where, this is my first time founding my own company, right? I built websites and marketing and done sales for other businesses and made them successful. But then now it's like, okay, like you've gone through a lot of those experiences. Now it's finally time to take a chance on yourself.
Mhm. Oh, I started getting interested by this entrepreneurial world because it doesn't have limits. I could create what I want from scratch.
Hmm.
Because I remember after failing for the fourth time in the exams, my mother just looked at me. You must work at something. Please send many CVs. That's how we call the resume. To
Hmm.
every
Yeah.
place you want, you will see. And I started, and they looked at my resume and said, no, we don't want you. There is something more qualified. Okay, we were facing an economic crisis, but while reading what I would do, I was feeling so dissatisfied. I was looking at what would I do and looking, oh, I can do it. Why don't they want me?
Hmm.
And that's why I had the idea of making a venture. And I started studying online courses about entrepreneurship.
Mm.
I met many people. I went to many startup events. It was a really good time. I saw many technological novelties. I remember the first time I tried the VR glasses was
Ah.
so crazy. I loved that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was supposed to draw in a 3D environment. Oh, it was so cool. And I thought, oh, I want this to my life.
Mm.
So, but what can I do? And I had the idea of creating something, but uh, well, the blog and podcast were already running, and the number of listen jumped from listeners. I had around 20 listeners a month to 30,000, and then
Mm.
I saw, oh my God. Oh, there are too many people interested in what I had to do. I only I was only singing and writing poems and talking about my life, some episodes of my life, and it was amazing. But I couldn't do anything to show my to my family, so I started secretly. Nowadays,
Mm.
it's not a secret anymore since I started therapy. My therapists they encouraged me to invest on my ventures and forget what my parents, relatives, and even people who had nothing to do with me thought about me. And that's why
Mm.
I started my to think as this blog, podcast, and graphic design thing as a business. And it's so good. I don't imagine myself, I can't imagine myself outside
Mm.
of it anymore. I love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the hard part about being an entrepreneur, right? Is you're starting from scratch, right? If you go into a business, then you have a job, right? So it's like, hey, you make these social media posts, you do that type of thing, you do that type of thing, then, and then you just go home at the end of the day and you're like, oh, I did my work today. But with the entrepreneur, you don't know what you're supposed to do. There's so many resources. There's so many like, here's how like the 5 steps that you have to do to get like 1 million followers or something like that. But then you try it, it doesn't work, and you're just like, man, like what's not working, right? And then you just kind of keep on working and working until with the eventual hopes of this is all going to work out in the end. But I think at the same time though, it's it's meaningful because you started it, right? It's because you're the product in a way, right? It's like, hey, like I I have this idea. I think it's gonna work. And just by you starting it, and it's because it's from your own brain, it's automatically meaningful, right? It's like, hey, like I'm working on something important, not just for me, but whoever's on the other side, right? Whether that's, for you, it's probably a listener or a reader, and for me, it's probably a user of the app. And for me, in terms of Aidoo, the app, it's kind of based on my own experiences with loneliness and boredom, right? It's those times when I was depressed and socially anxious. I wanted to have an app where I could just make new friends and just go out there and do
Mhm.
things with people. And now I'm realizing, man, like, man, there's so many people around in the world that are feeling lonely, or that they don't have any friends, or they just moved to a new city and they're like, what do I do now? I don't have any people here. So in a way, like the app that I'm building, it's it's the app that I wish I could give to my younger self, like the guy that was just
Oh,
spending all day in the bedroom, just looking at his smartphone or his computer. Like, man, I wonder when things are going to get better. And things did get a lot better once I pushed myself. And I wish I could just give that app to my younger self and be like, hey, man, just go out there, have fun, make new friends, and you'll eventually not be lonely or bored anymore.
oh, that's amazing, your idea. I remember I had when I started with social media, I was 17, 18 years old. Well, before that, we only had MSN Messenger. You certainly know this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in America, we used AOL Instant Messenger. So AIM, that was the chat room back in the day. So AIM, that was the chat room back in the day.
Oh yeah, it was really funny, but well, I wanted to talk to someone other than my my relatives or people I met around, and we changed the MSN Messenger, and
Hmm.
well, I started doing all my profiles in English, not in Portuguese. And many people from my family said, "Oh, you don't like us? Come on, make something in our language." And I told
Yeah,
them, "Oh no, I want to know new people.
yeah.
I want to know the foreigners." Because everything was so closer to me. I was an introvert,
Hmm.
and because my town is violent, my parents didn't let me go to anywhere I like it. Uh,
Hmm.
just like you, they didn't like the kind of music I love. I still love rock and metal.
Oh,
I
cool.
yeah. Oh, and when I was 18, 19, I started listening to black metal. Oh, many people
Yeah,
was, "Oh, you like this?" And I said,
yeah,
"Yes."
yeah. My parents called the techno that I would listen to devil music. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, but yeah, black metal is definitely, it's got the theme of like, all the
yes,
black and stuff like that.
oh, everything black. Oh, and um, I was like, "Oh, how to find like-minded people?" And social media. We also had chat rooms. They were really nice to find like-minded people, but Well, when we closed the computer, when we turned it off, we came back to our lonely life.
Right.
I always felt like an island. Many people here, they like to dance, uh, they like to drink and dancing to popular music in the in Friday night, and I don't like it. I
Mm.
remember in a certain moment, my mother said, "Oh, you should go to that parties too." And I told her, "Oh, but I hate the music there. I feel headaches."
Yeah.
And she told me, "Okay, but you'll be lonely forever." Um,
Oh man. I think our parents were both kind of tough on us. Yeah,
yes.
I think that's the common theme.
Oh, but when I started going to art classes like theater and singing, I started making more friends because, okay, we didn't have too many things in common, but we had something. We were all crazy and creative people.
Mhm.
So I could find my place. But if an app helps us to well shorten this path, oh, it's good.
Mhm.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of how the app came about as well was I told you I ended with a van story, right? So I traveled in the van for 6 months. You know, I'm definitely kind of like a hippie, so I really enjoyed going to the national parks and stuff like that. And then eventually, I started in Texas and then kind of made my way all the way up towards Canada, not actually going into Canada, but to Montana, then went west towards Washington. And then I finally parked my van in California. And that's actually where this part comes in. It means west
Oh,
wind. So
nice.
it's like this van kind of came out of nowhere and just moved me to California. And my brother was living in Oakland at the time, and Oakland is part of the Bay, which is kind of like the tech central of America. And he was working in tech sales, and I'd done sales before. So he was like, "Hey, you should get a tech sales job." And I applied, eventually got a job, and that's what started my tech career, which is how I know stuff about, like building an app and stuff like that. But I
Mhm.
remember like when I first landed, I didn't know too many people in San Francisco slash the Bay. So I was like, man, how do I start a social circle or start making friends from the ground up, right? I don't know too many people here, and this was also during the lockdown, so not many people walking around, and everyone was just communicating online to plan meetups and
Mhm.
stuff. Um, and then also so I was using the dating apps, right? The dating apps to like meet new people and go on dates, but the bars
Oh,
were
yeah.
closed, the restaurants were closed, the nightclubs, not that I go to nightclubs, but they were closed as well. So instead of doing that, we had to focus on doing more healthy activities, right? So I would say to girls like, hey, like let's, instead of me just going over to your house or you coming over to mine, let's go meet at a park, or let's go ride bikes around at a park or something, or let's go to the beach or something like that. And then I found that in terms of setting the tone for like that relationship, it was a much better option than going to a bar, having like three drinks, and then you don't remember all the details. Instead,
Oh,
you're outside. Yeah, instead, you're outside, like getting sunshine and then like sitting next to each other and just having a good conversation. And I thought, man,
that's great.
and that's kind of where the seed was planted for the app. Was I wish that there was an easier, healthier way to connect with people in real life, right? Instead of just going on doing the same thing, or like doing the same thing again and again and again. Like I think people want to be outside more. People want to have new friends and new connections, but it takes a lot of work. It takes also a lot of the same interests and activities and hobbies and things like that. So why not learn about what that person is interested in doing outside and then helping you plan that event, right? So if you like bikes and she likes bikes, then you can plan a bike ride together. If she likes concerts and you like concerts, maybe even the same artist, we can help you plan that artist, or whenever that artist come in town, you can go to that concert together. So really, it was just a combination of experiences that I've had that said, like, there has to be a better way of meeting up with people in real life. And that's kind of what I'm building right now.
Oh, that's great. I think so too. I think well, I went to nightclubs twice, and I hated that
I
because
talk. There's no talking.
I just wanted to have fun, and people started touching me, and I hate to being
Mm,
interrupted. So, but I like to walk on street and talk. I My favorite place in the whole universe is the coffee shop. I love coffee
mm,
shops.
me too.
Uh, and talk to someone, or uh, even go alone and draw a little in a coffee shop is one of the best things to my mind. It's much better than following uh, the routine and listening to all this external noise. Oh, you must know someone. You must do something. Why are you still single? Why don't you have kids? Oh,
Mm,
if I say because I don't want, because this is not the time, some people will not be interested, but yes, this is the case. Sometimes
mhm,
I just want to live my life and meet new friends. I love
mm,
to meet new people. I think many people I brought to my podcast could be easily friends outside the cameras and all this context. But
mhm.
well, it would be great to find someone to um, one, two, three, or 20 people to have a coffee and
Yeah.
talk about uh, well, about what appears to our minds. I really don't like this pressure to uh, well to be to talk about trends. Yeah, the fear of missing out. This is something I really think it's disgusting. I never liked to be on the trend, even in fashion. I love fashion, but to wear something everyone is wearing is not
Mm,
my cup of tea. So, but talk about generalities while sipping a coffee or walking on street. Just listening to the cityscapes is a really great experience. I like to do it when I travel too, not only
mm,
when I'm in my town. Actually, I don't do when while in my town because well, here is really violent. It's really tough to say. Yesterday, I was really afraid to uh, not because I almost suffered a car robbery, but because
mm,
I was with many family members, and the people who what was going to steal the car seemed to have a gun, and well, I was afraid to die. I had to say,
oh no.
but
Is it Rio? Do you live in Rio?
yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have been super stressful for you.
Oh yeah, have a nice walk in the park is not so easy. I have to plan ahead and well tell my safety net well where I'm going. It's really stressful. It's really stressful.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's going to be one of the features on the app too, right? So if you think about the singles market, and I think safety overall in the world is kind of going down, there's a lot more angry people, frustrated people. There might be more predators as well, even though I don't know the actual numbers on that. So let's say that you want to go to a coffee shop either by yourself or with another person, you have a safety circle, right? So these are people that you can say, like, hey, I'm going to go to this coffee shop with this person at 7 p.m. And then that event will be sent to your family members. So they're like, okay, Leia's going to go into a coffee shop at this time. And then once you're at the coffee shop, you'll be able to share your location and say, like, okay, here's where I am. Everything is good. And then you can also let them know, like, hey, I'm done at the coffee shop. I'm going to go home now. So I hope one day, yeah, you have more peace of mind because, of the feature, the safety feature that's kind of built into the app as well.
Oh, great. So, what does your morning routine look like, and how does it motivate you for the day?
My morning routine. I mean, I would love to say like I have like five things that I do every day, but I'm pretty ADD and my sleep schedule isn't always on sync. So it's not always the same, but whenever I wake up, either in my bed or I actually get up and like start meditating. Meditating is definitely the first thing that I do every day, and just like 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes of either doing a guided meditation or just some nature sounds or something like that, and then that really helps me get it set the tone for the day, right? I think whenever your mind is calm, you're able to think and remind yourself of like, hey, like this is what you're working on. This is like, have like a quiet moment with yourself. And then, I walk my dog right after that. So like, yeah, he's over there on my bed, but yeah, he's so I walk my dog, and then that kind of gives me a sense of gratitude as well, of like, okay, now I feel present in myself. And then my dog is like so happy whenever I pull out the leash, right? So he's like, I'm giving him joy just by taking him on a small walk, and then I get some sunshine from walking around, and then I come back, and then I look at kind of like, okay, what's my calendar look like? What are the things that I need to get done today, this week? And then typically I just start working right after that. So I just start working, just tackling like the stuff like line item by line item. And
Mhm.
I think the point of that routine is reactiveness, right? I think whenever you wake up and then you start looking at your smartphone, you're always responding to situations, right? You're like, oh, I have to text this person, or dang, I forgot to send that email. Like, let's do that right now. But by setting the tone with like kind of some silence and some presence in the beginning, as well as it's like contribution to my dog, if that makes sense. It's like I'm helping him because he needs to poop, he needs to pee, and he loves walking. So just starting the day off with like, okay, like let's kind of focus more on gratitude. I'm so happy that I have my dog here, and giving, and then I can start work, right? Because then I have a much better attitude. I'm like, okay, like you get to work on this dream project that you've been building. It's important because there's a lot of lonely people out there, bored people out there that want to do fun activities with their friends, and that kind of sets the tone for the day. And then I definitely notice when I don't do it, I'm more stressed out, right? It's like, oh man, like as an entrepreneur, like the work is never ending. Like
No,
you
never.
yeah, never ending. You always have to reach out to more people. there's always like opportunities that if you forget about, they're going to go away. But by setting that tone in the beginning, I think you become more aware, and then just overall more present, like kind of being grateful for the day that you're able to live.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I had a dog too, but unfortunately, she passed away in 2022. It was
Oh
a
no.
tough day for
Yeah.
for me, but it's great to start the day. And there is one thing I do for myself, not to start the day as a reactive person. I don't sleep
Mm,
with my phone anymore.
mm,
It goes to airplane mode and it stays here. And when I go to my bedroom, uh, well, the problems, the messages I have to answer, the emails, they
mm,
stay here. And
mm,
I wake up doing my prayers, doing my yoga. Uh,
mm,
well, uh, okay, sometimes it's chaotic because it's hard to wake up. I'm really tired, but I make it work. That's all that matters.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's also just like you're taking care of yourself in the morning, right? It's like like just through the day, there's a bunch of work to do, and you're probably going to be tired at times. But if you take care of yourself and like be present with yourself in the morning, then you have that moment with yourself, right? You're like, okay, like I'm Eubin, right? I'm working on this thing. I'm happy about the person that I'm becoming, and and I'm also taking care of myself and my dog. And I think that's a good way to start, And then some days are good, some days are bad, but then I think it's also important to kind of reflect on yourself at the end of the day too. It's like, hey, you've had this day, you've had all these different experiences, um, but you've also had a good day. Like I don't think bad days and good days, like sometimes there's like bad days where it's like, why is everything happening all on this day, right? It's but then that's also like an opportunity to be like, hey, like you made it through today, it's not like a failure that you had a bad day. You're just a person that's living this crazy consciousness experience, right? And
Mhm.
and you'll never be able to live a life as someone else, but I think that's also the gift too. No one can live the life that you do.
Absolutely. Well, it's really important to remember why we are doing this, and indeed, positive message. Take care of ourselves is great for us. And the next question is about personal journey. What
Okay.
was the turning point that made you decide to step out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, that's that's a good question. So in terms of stepping out of my comfort zone, I think it's kind of I've shared like my life story today, but it's been a series of stepping out, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
I was in the room, I got that job, and that pushed me into the outside world, and then when I was in San Francisco, like I pushed myself to like kind of build a new social circle and kind of go after my dreams. And I think there's a lot of reasons why people step outside from their comfort zone. I think for me, I moved back from San Francisco when about I would say August to September of last year, and this kind of has to deal with kind of like a villain story, if that makes sense. So I used to work for this guy, and he was my boss at the time. And then he was like, "Hey, Eubin, I really want to start a company with you." So he was going to make a co-founder for a product that had got a patent, right? And I'd done marketing for him. So he was like, okay, like, I know that you're really good at marketing since you've made my business a bunch of money. Now become the marketer for my product and you'll become a co-founder. And, and the thing is, I'm always the type to like just get stuff done like fast, right? Like I have these ideas in my head and I'm just like, okay, like how do I make the marketing messaging better? Like so essentially he was like, okay, I'm going to make you a co-founder. And then I started doing all the work, right? So it's like building the website. I did that in a couple days, finding like the engineer to like refine the product and the sales people, the ads people to like market the product. Like I'd already like lined everything up for him. And then we would like go back and forth about like the contract, right? So it's like, okay, based on if Eubin generates, $500,000 or $1 million, then you're going to get this percentage of the company, right? And that was honestly kind of my dream for about 8 months, right? So 8 months I'd spent like working for free, working on this project, and then working for this guy, and believing that I'll eventually have the founder label attached to my name. But then things started kind of going downhill when it came to the actual contract, right? So we've been going back and forth on like Apple Notes, right? And just saying like, okay, like if you do this amount of sales, then you get this much of the company. But then whenever I sent that contract over to my parents, they found a bunch of, it was very one-sided essentially, right? So it was a 2-year contract, but then in the first year, he could cancel at any time, right? So if even if I made like him $1 million, he could say like, oh, you've done all this work, but this is within that time frame, so you can't work, like you're not a part of this company anymore. So yeah, I was like, that's definitely something that I don't want to be in. I was also living in San Francisco at the time, which is super, super expensive and not earning a bunch of money. So I was like, okay, I need to get my own lawyer and, redraft this contract. And and then that's when things started going downhill, right? So he's like, why are you getting a lawyer involved? Like, don't you just trust me? Like, I'm going to like take care of you if this product becomes a success. And me, on the other hand, I'm like, well, it's in the contract that we signed that you can cancel in the first year. Like, if it's a 2-year contract, I'm giving away 2 years of my life to this bike product. And the thing is, I don't ride bikes at all. I just really wanted that title of founder of a company, right? And then he started becoming more emotionally manipulative, like really micromanaging my work when I was actually working for him. And then we would honestly like start like kind of getting angry with each other at the office and like just kind of yelling and just like trying to negotiate. Like me, I was just like, man, I'll do anything to make this work. And then his thing was like, I've already built the bike product, like, just do it and just trust me and I'll take care of you. And then it came to a point where it was like probably like 2 or 3 months later of like trying to negotiate and trying to find the terms that would work. And I'd already spent money on my own lawyer to like draft a new contract and send it over to him. And then I was like, well, like, here's the contract. Like, if you can't sign it now, like, it doesn't make sense for me to stay here, right? And then he essentially said like, well, you've been like, my lawyer told me not to sign the contract, so I'm not going to sign it. So essentially I'd wasted 8 months of my life working to become a co-founder for a bike product that I didn't even care about. So that was essentially rock bottom for me, right? It's like I'd been in tech sales before. I could have made a lot more money, but just by being sold on this dream of being a founder at a company, I was like, okay, like I really, 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 really want to make this happen. But at the very final moment, when I'd done all this work, even spent my own money and all my time to make this dream happen, everything just fell apart, right? And I was just so mad, right? I was so mad. Like, I would wake up every day and just like, man, I just wasted 8 months of my life, Like, how am I going to explain this to like my next employer? How, like, I don't have that much money, like, and, it's so expensive living here. Like, how do, how do I win? I think that was really the thought that came in my mind, because he literally turned himself into my enemy, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
he sold me on this dream of like, hey, like, I'm going to make you a co-founder. And then it never happened. And you know, probably for, I'm pretty sure his lawyer didn't told him. He was just like, okay, like, and that's what happened too, is he actually like took my work afterwards and then just like locked me out of the accounts. So he had access to the website that I built, all the people that I'd linked him up with, like, he still was like going forward with them. So I was like, how do I win? How do I win? So I would just like walk back and forth in my room and, like, thinking of all the different strategies of like how to overcome the situation, and also, like, yeah, how to succeed. And then the
Mm-hmm.
conclusion that I came to is that revenge, or success, is the best revenge, right? That
Yeah.
is really the only way, because he's got more money than me. He's got better lawyers. I'm not violent, so I'm not going to like go in there and do something that I regret or my parents will be, disappointed in me for. So really the only chance that I could have was to start something of my own and make it bigger than whatever thing he did, and then use that as kind of my story, right? It's how I got started doing this thing. And how this ties in with the app is, I remember, because I wanted to be a co-founder in this bike product, right? And and then, me coming from a tech background, I designed like my own product, which was essentially a kind of like a social networking app, but made for bikers, right? So it would be like, hey, you can add your friends, and and I actually like downloaded some wireframes and like adjusted it to like show the concept of the
Mm-hmm.
app, but you can plan rides with other people. So it's like, hey, I'm going from this spot to this spot, right? Who wants to join me, right? And then you can have either strangers or your friends, and you could plan rides together. And I thought like, hey, this is a good idea for an app, like, I think there's something of value here. And when I pitched it to my boss, he was like, no, that's a horrible idea. Like, no one's ever going to use it. Let's just focus on my product, right? The one that I built. And then like, you can do whatever you want, but like, no, we're not doing that. And kind of thinking that night, when I was like, how do I win? I thought, Eubin, that's not a bad idea. I think there's actually a lot of people that would love to find uh, similar people that share the same interests and activities that they do, right? So that kind of started with like, okay, let's create a platform for activity-based gatherings, right? So it's like bikers can meet bikers, or concert goers can meet concert goers. And what we do is essentially help plan that event for them. And then the next day I started designing it. Honestly started out as kind of like a dating app, right? So I was like, okay, like, instead of people just saying hi or hey in the first message, like, the first message can be activities that you're interested in, right? So it could be like, hey girl, like, I see that we're both interested in bikes, like, let's go on a bike ride together that's nearby, right? And then it just kind of like, I just started like drafting the idea more and more and more, and realized like, this is not just a dating app, right? I think there's a global rise in loneliness and boredom that's happening due to technology and social media and stuff like that. But deep down, as humans, we know that we feel connection outside, right? In person, and not so much just, through FaceTime or texting or email or whatever method you choose. Like, we have this inherent need in us to be outside and socializing. And then what I'm creating through the app is a platform that makes that super easy, right? You just have to pick the person and then the activity, and then we do the rest of the work for you.
Oh,
Yeah, that's that's my like origin story, but it's
wonderful.
I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'll just kind of like end on this point, it's like kind of with what you were saying earlier, it's there's you don't know, like, and maybe to tie into like the theme of chaos as well and courage, like that was a moment when I had the courage to start building my own thing, right? So
Mm.
before I was just working for other people and making them money and not really believing in my own ideas 100%. But once I had that experience happen to me and saying like, man, I really wanted this thing, this co-founder title, and start building like something together, well, I realized like, man, well, that's not going to happen anymore. And not only is it going to not going to happen, I'm I've hit rock bottom, right? And it was in that moment that I was like, the only way out is to get out there and finally take a chance on myself, right?
Mhm.
And 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 because of that, you know, as you know, being an entrepreneur is hard, right? There's going to be
Yeah.
moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why is everything falling apart? Or like, why does no one care? And for me, it's like, it started with the motivation of what happened to me, of like, man, this guy really screwed me over. So I know I have to succeed and get revenge by sharing my story. But then now there's this bigger vision of bringing people together and bringing people in person and building relationships that, you know, that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And that's what motivates me today.
Oh, that's great. Well, you already answered another question, which do what's your biggest failure? I think this venture is your biggest failure. But I'm glad you didn't sign a contract. I think many
Oh
people.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
100% glad that I did not sign.
yeah, I studied for many years about this in law, and I really think many times before signing a contract, and I read line by line. Many people don't believe in it, but it's the best way not to get in trouble.
Mm,
Uh, but I would say the first venture I made was fictitious, so I don't consider this a success or a failure. I just learned it. I had to create an app. It would be just and well, based on my studies in international relations and in this dream of leaving the country, I thought about an app to help immigrants.
mm,
People uh, when people arrive to another country, they normally have one or two contacts, but they don't have a huge safety net there. And this app would help people building this safety net online. It would be oh, it was the idea, but like I said, it was just fictitious, and I didn't work on this as a real app.
mm. Yeah. And I think that's a great idea. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of immigration just across borders all the time, right? And immigrants, I mean, knowing from personal experience, you feel vulnerable, right? You don't know all the information that all the other people do. You don't know how to like get a driver's license, or you don't know how to like, apply for healthcare or things like that. And maybe there's a chance in the future where you're like, hey, I think this is something that's worth valuable worth pursuing, and for me, it was kind of different, right? It's kind of like that rock bottom situation. Now it's like, this is the only way out, right? And but people start their company for a variety of reasons, and I think the timing worked out for me like pretty well too, because I was moving back to Texas at the time, and then that allowed me the space to really flesh out that idea, and maybe that'll work for you too. Maybe you'll have a time in your life where you can pursue that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and um, who are the most influential people in your life?
Yeah, I would say 100%. It's my parents. Like maybe that's like a such a common answer, but yeah, I've been able to see, because like I shared about like how their perspective was when I was younger, right? And they were very much like trying to keep us safe, but also controlled in a way. Um, and and we would have like arguments. Like I was a pretty rebellious kid in my 20s, you know, so I wouldn't come home. Like I would just go out partying and things like that. And then we would have fights and arguments. And then also we had a grandma with dementia, so
Mhm.
she would start like losing her memory and becoming a little bit more aggressive. And then
Oh,
my parents would have to deal with that, right? And I would deal with that too because I would be at home. But then every time that, because I've always had these ideas, right? I've always like, you know, thought of new ideas or new products, and I actually like help them out with their business with like my marketing and things like that. And I've been able to see how I've grown alongside them. I think before, when we were younger, I didn't know anything, and looking back, like they didn't know as much as I thought they did. You know, it's like I thought they like knew everything in terms of the world, but they were also just immigrants trying to figure stuff out, right? They don't know like whether techno music is really devil music, or they don't know if like, you know, me being a lawyer was the best possible path for me, but they thought it was safe. But they look at how I've come along, and I think yeah, I'm pretty sure they're proud of me. I'll have to double check with them on that. But yeah, they're able to see how much I've grown coming from that lonely, kind of isolated kid in my early 20s. And now, like, I've gone through different jobs and different life experiences and traveling in a van and all that type of stuff. And now I'm finally stumbling upon something that's like so meaningful to me, right? And they're able to see how much I've grown in that regard. And for them, I've seen them like try going from like, hey, like we're gonna tell you what to do because we know it's best, to we know that you have gifts and you have dreams, and we're gonna support you to develop those, right? And whenever things fell apart, right? Like with my boss earlier, right? This They were the first ones to be like, hey, like let's go fight this dude, right? We'll get lawyers, like we know a bunch of like business people. But then also when I told them about the app, right? And they're like, I would tell a bunch of people about the app and they'd be like, isn't that kind of like Facebook events, or not really like care as much? But then they would be the ones to be like, yeah, like I think that's a good idea. Like, let's go ahead and start building this thing together, right? And through that journey, like we've been able to grow through the tough times together. I think that's really important in a relationship. If you're always just, you know, happy all the time, then happy in a relationship all the time, and you know, like I think it's really those periods of pain where you really find out what your relationship is made out of, right? And for me, I was so angry those months I first came home. I would wake up and I was like, I gotta beat this guy. Like I gotta like work, and like I'd be angry and just like, man, like I don't know what to do. And just kind of work and work and work towards this idea that was just an idea at the time. But they supported me 100% of the way, right? And my whole life, they supported me 100% of the way. And I I hope one day to have that level of commitment to someone, you know? I think it's easy nowadays to like have a friend and then like, sometimes like it's easy to ghost people nowadays, right? There's so many options to like in terms of friendships and stuff like that. But really, I'm finding that the value of relationships is discovered in the tough times, right? It's when you're happy or things are going good for you, it's easy to make friends because people want to be around you, right? Um, but then when you're in the deeps and you're facing all these troubles and you're feeling overwhelmed, and for me, like I don't I don't want like I think I like spread energy easily, right? So if I have a bad energy, I'm very conscious of that and saying like, oh, like I just need to like be by myself and like not tell anyone about my problems and stuff like that. But I think just by seeing my parents and seeing how they have unconditional support for me, right? I think that's what I would love to continue doing is like taking their life as an example of like, hey, you can grow through these different periods of becoming an immigrant to becoming a doctor to supporting your children in their dreams, right? Me, like I've kind of lived a different life, but eventually I want to get to that point where it's like, hey, like I love you and I'll do anything for you. Just tell me what you need, right, in order to make this happen.
Um, um, well, this is a great answer. I think many of my guests, around 85% of my guests, they say this the same. My parents, my grandparents, uh,
Mhm.
many people are influenced by family, and obviously, I'm also uh, very influenced by one of my family members, my great grandmother. It's
Mhm.
no novelty. I think she was the most influential because when I was a kid, I always have images of her cooking delicious dishes for us and talking about everything. She was a school teacher when she was
Mhm.
young, and uh, uh, I also remember going to her personal library and reading a lot of books about curiosities and the world around me. It was really uh, a wonderful experience.
Mhm.
And when she passed away, I was 15 years old, and it
Mhm.
devastated me.
Mhm.
And something you said about counting on someone uh, in tough times. I experienced this around 1 or 2 years ago. My mother suffered a car crash. It was really serious.
Mhm.
She almost died, and well, I had to take care of her for 8 months,
Mhm.
and I could see who was with me and who wasn't with me, and
Mhm.
of course, after everything happened, and well, now she's much better. I started cutting from my life everyone who didn't worth my attention, or they don't want to know if I'm fine or not. They just want to know what's going on in my life, if this smart girl is succeeding or not. So I started cutting these people, and I feel so much better like this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Yeah, it's it's you don't want to, yeah, just kind of like you said, like I think friendships are such an important part of your life because you are really the five people that you spend the most time with, right? So those 5 people become a part of you, right? But if those people don't give you the type of responsiveness that you need, or if they make you feel worse about yourself, or if they make you feel alone, which I have been in friendships where they make you feel like I feel like lonely with this person, then it's better to be alone than feel lonely with another person, right? So I'm I 100% agree with that. I think now that I'm getting in my 30s, I'm 31 now. It's
Oh.
it's yeah, it's really about the quality of the relationships, and kind of relating to your point about FOMO earlier, like the fear of missing out. You're never missing out as long as you're happy with yourself, right? As long as you think you've got a good thing going, like who cares, right? This is your life, it's not anyone else's.
Oh, great. Well, there are two more questions before we start our lightning round. This is the best part of the episode. uh,
Okay.
the the next question is about cultural connections. Well, you talked a lot about your parents, and well, you went to a foreign country really young, but uh, how has your cultural background influenced your work and even your personal life?
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting question because there's a lot of cultures mixed up in me, I would say. So I am Korean, but I immigrated when I was pretty young, right? So I was like 6 years old. So
Okay.
and I know how to speak the language because I had to communicate with my grandma, but it wasn't like I'm gonna go to university in Korea. Like I would probably fail. I'd probably fail automatically. So um, and could you tell me the last part of that question again?
Oh, how has your cultural background shaped your personal life and even your work life, if it shapes in a certain way?
Yeah, yeah. So in many ways, I am Korean, but I think I'm more Texan than Korean, if that makes sense. So like I really grew up like enjoying the outdoors, and like I would go fishing and hunting growing up, and then the Korean part would always be present at home, right? It's like we would be watching Korean dramas like you and
Yes.
eating Korean food, and watching Korean news and things like that. But then I always felt more Americanized than Korean, if that made sense. So
Mhm.
I didn't really follow like all the K-pop bands, or I didn't really follow the like Koreans are obsessed about academics. I don't know if you know that, but like Koreans just are so dead set on going to the right college and becoming like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, that type of thing. But then I've always been more of like, I kind of want to do my own thing, even though I don't know what it is. But yeah, so I kind of like chose to be more American, and honestly kind of like took that Korean part down a little bit. I was like, I'm more American slash Texan than I am Korean. Uh, but then like, yeah. So from age 6 to around probably 14, 15, I never visited Korea again. But then that's when I made my first trip, and it was a really good experience because you discover like this whole new side of your life that you didn't know, right? So
Mhm.
it was like going back home to another home, if that makes sense, right? It's like, man, all these people look like me, and we all enjoy the same food, we all enjoy the same thing. So I thought from that point on, I was like, okay, I'm not just American, even though I speak English most of the time, and listen to like American music, and that type of thing, I realized like, man, like I really limited myself from experiencing this whole other side of myself that is actually like my birthplace, right? So then I started celebrating it more, right? So that's when I started like, oh, K-pop's not that bad. I love
Oh,
like
yeah.
Ijori and like 2 p.m. and all that type of stuff, and then started like sharing my culture more with my friends. So it's like, hey, like you should try this food. It's amazing. It's delicious. And then now kind of it wraps up full circle because I'm just able to celebrate every culture, right? Not even just like Korean or American culture, but I love Mexican culture. I love Brazilian food. I love like cozinhas,
Nice.
and stuff like that. So it's like these are all aspects of our world that are meant to be celebrated and shared. But for some reason, just because of like how I viewed myself, um, the I felt like limited in a way growing up, right? Kind of with that early childhood memory of like trying to sneak away my food so that no one would see it, right? Like I in a way I felt like, oh, like because I'm an outsider, I'm ashamed of it, right? But now it's like, hey, I want to share this with you, and you may or may not like it. I don't care. I like it, right? And in terms of work too, I think this is like more. It makes it even more meaningful because Korea is suffering from a declining birth rate, right? So
I heard
everyone's
about
addicted.
it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like there's even like government programs to like say like, oh, hey, go have a kid with your friend, and we'll like support the baby or something like that. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but there is a declining birth rate all across Asia and all across America too, right? People are not going out as much more, and then people aren't going out on dates and putting themselves out there. So if my app allows people to connect more in person and allow them to like start actually building relationships and becoming happier and eventually having kids, then I think that would be a good way in which I could contribute to the country where I was born, right? So if I'm able to create better relationships through my app, then and in some way it's like people are having more babies, which I'm hoping it will. But then that would be a way to contribute to my culture that I definitely, celebrate and cherish.
Oh, well, that's amazing. For a long, long, long time in my life, I denied my roots, my culture. Well, I learned 14 languages. No one believes this, but not
Wow.
Korean.
Oh, wow. Korean's actually, it's the alphabet's pretty easy to learn. So if you know 14,
I
I'm
heard,
sure it's not good. Yeah.
I heard about it. I'm learning Japanese because of work thing, but well, uh, after doing therapy and doing all this journey during pandemic, I started questioning myself. Why am I hiding my roots? Just because I'm not what foreigners expect to see? Just because I don't like party, I hate samba, I hate to play soccer and watch soccer too. Uh, I don't eat meat, so uh, I'm a weirdo in my culture, and I'm an introvert. So I started asking myself, why should I deny my roots? Some things I bring from my family, from all this context I'm in, and I started
Hmm.
to accept and show to people from where I come and try to break the stereotypes.
Hmm.
I love to break stereotypes in people, and when I must say I started enjoying watching Korean dramas because uh, I think we have something in common. Our cultures are really closed, and here there is a high societal pressure, especially on middle class people, to join a good university to have a standard life.
Hmm. Right.
We uh, if we come from middle class, we must be the perfect people. Have the standardized life, and in a certain moment of my 20s, I thought, okay, I don't want this to me. Why
Mm.
should I pursue this? And in the pandemic, or even before, when I started talking more to foreign people, I started to see some things are just cultural BS. Some
Mm.
things from my culture, they are good. I'm a very creative person, and I see many Brazilians creating things without a single cent from scratch.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is
There's
great.
a there's some accounts I follow on Instagram like this is amazing work, from Brazilians.
Yeah. And we are very resilient people. We suffer a lot, but we can stand up promptly and do what we need. I think
Hmm.
this is really awesome. I heard this story from my grandfather, the one, I think, the first generation of artists from my mother's side of family.
Hmm.
My uncles, my mother's brothers, they are also very hard work and resilient people. And this is beautiful. Why should I hide this? And
Hmm.
now I'm not that kind of proud to be a Latina woman, but well, I'm accepting more and telling more the other people uh,
Hmm.
where I come and my roots. This is truly amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say like, so in America there's like a saying, it's like don't forget where you came from. But I think for me it's like to kind of put a spin on that phrase, it's, start appreciating where you came from, right? Because there's a mixture of experiences, culture, um, and just your own personality that makes you you, and that comes from your upbringing, like the places that you visited, the things that have happened to you, and
Mhm.
if you're able to, like you said, accept it and like just recognize that that's a part of you, then you can begin to celebrate it more, right? You're like, hey, not only like it's two ways of framing it, right? You can think of like, oh, like I come from like this type of culture, and a lot of bad things have happened to me, so that's why I'm this way. Then that's one way of looking at it, and I think that's a very common way of looking at it. But if you're able to think like, oh, I have this culture that has a bunch of awesome things, and then these things that have happened to me, like they allowed me to shape my future or like pick out where I'm going, and I've learned from those experiences and become a better person, then I think you're doing the right thing, right? It's two ways of like looking at the same thing, but one is constructive, one's a bit more destructive or focusing more on the path.
Absolutely. Well, the last thing I would ask, I heard about it, but I never met anyone about living as a hikikomori for 6
Oh,
months.
yeah, that was the time when I left college, right? So
Okay.
that was a time where I just stayed in my room, just did everything on the screens and barely went outside, right? And that was when, you know, honestly, yeah, I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life. I just switched my major three times at a very expensive college, and it seemed like everyone else that I knew or started college with had a better idea of what they wanted to do or what they were going to do with their career. And I just felt like my life was on pause, right? It was just like someone had pressed the pause button and I'm just distracting myself through my smartphone or my computer and just like making the things go by. But then and the reason it's called hikikomori is there's a whole subset of people in Japan that do that for their whole lives. And it's like, they could be in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, and they're still living with their parents and just playing like the PlayStation or watching TV all day. And they're afraid to get a job or, they can't keep a job for some reason. And it's becoming a much more prevalent problem nowadays. Like me, I'm looking at the people that are responding, or like I'm doing a bunch of user interviews for the app and stuff like that. And there's like 30-year-olds that fill out like, hey, I've never been on a date before, right? Or I haven't gone out with someone in 5 years, or like I've been divorced for 5 years. Like I haven't seen like not seen a woman, but like I haven't like gone to a date with a woman since I've been divorced. And I think I think it's because these technologies are designed to keep us separated, right? If you think about social media, it's meant to keep us on our phones, right? It's not meant for us to actually like go out and say like, oh, I'm going to add you as a friend, like let's make plans. It's just like, oh, here's some crazy stuff that's happening on the other side of the world that became viral, and we know it's going to like make you stuck behind your phone, right?
Mhm.
And these games are only getting better and better. I love video games, but I don't really play them anymore. But these games are only getting better and better and turning more immersive, and it has all these mechanisms built in to make you play longer and longer, right? And with like the metaverse too, like you tried out the goggles, like imagine a world where everyone's just wearing those goggles and never interacting in real life, right? So I kind of took that experience and then in a way like uh, I kind of pioneered that experience, if that makes sense. Like I was doing that at a point in my life, but then there's so many young kids, and not just young. There's so many people in all demographics that are feeling lonely and not confident in themselves, so they turn towards an ineffective solution toward of loneliness, which is technology, right? But I believe that with my app, we're using technology in the way that it should be used in terms of a social network, which is actually bringing people together in person, right? I think that's what Facebook want, like that's what they promised us is like, oh, you can meet anywhere across the globe and we'll make it super easy for you to like build friendships and connect in real life. But they just went the I mean, everyone knows Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like he just went the way of like trying to build this massive company and then putting the addictive algorithms in there so that we're just spending more time behind the screens. Now, I think we can actually use technology to get us off our smartphones and off the computer so that we can.
All right, now we are going to start the lightning round.
Okay,
uh,
I'm ready.
I'll ask some quick questions, but your answers doesn't necessarily need to be quick. Well, the first question is, what's the most memorable outdoor activity you have planned?
I have planned right now, or like in my memories.
Oh, in your memories.
Okay. It was a place called Van Lake in Montana. This was when I was on the van journey, and
Mhm.
we had been driving for like 12 hours, but like not 12 hours. It was probably close to like 7, 8 hours. But we the Google Maps wasn't working because there was no service. Montana is like a very like isolated place, so there's not a lot of cell service. The Google Maps is also not accurate, so it was around like 11 or 12 at night, and we were
Mhm.
constantly driving around trying to find a new place. And then there's this spot called Van Lake, which wasn't on the map, right? We just saw like a small sign, just like probably like this big, and it said Van Lake, and we're like, okay, like we stopped at like all these different campsites, but they were all full, so we thought we would have to like sleep on the side of the road. And I was traveling with my friend at the time, so to add a little bit of context to that story. But yeah, we're sleeping on this. We thought we were gonna have to be like literally homeless, like sleep on the side of the road, and then continue the next day. But we went to this place called Van Lake, and the trails were like so crazy. Like we didn't know what the hell was gonna happen. We didn't know if we are gonna find a spot. And we're like, how the hell are we gonna get out of here, even if we do make it? But it turned out to be the most beautiful place that I've ever been at. Like Montana is already a beautiful country, or not country, beautiful state. And then it was just like the most serene. Like we just parked there and we're like, okay, finally we found like a spot that we could camp at. And then when we woke up the next day, it was like the most beautiful scenery I'd ever seen in my life. So that's probably my favorite outdoor memory.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I never went camping because I hate insects.
Yeah. Hey, I don't like them either, so that's why I stay in the van. It's not a lot of insects in there.
um, if your life could take a radical turn, what would that be?
A red, could you, if my life could take a what turn?
A radical turn?
A red could turn? I'm not
Like
sure. Yeah, could you maybe give me some context on that?
a plot twist like this.
Oh, a plot twist. Um, well, I do make music, so if I become a famous musician, that would be pretty cool. But I think, yeah, I think it's cool because like in a way I can express my creativity with my work, you know. I think with the solution that I'm building, it does require a lot of like problem solving and fixing, but then I'm actually living in Austin, Texas right now, and it's one of like the live music capitals of the world. So I'm still working on like writing songs and performing on stage and stuff like that. So that's one thing I continue want to continue doing. And if someone finds me and says like, "Hey, we want to sign you a contract," well, I'll have to look at the contract first, right? Like, I don't like contracts, but yeah, I think that would be definitely a plot twist that I would enjoy.
Okay. Well, being a famous singer was my childhood dream. I would love to sing on stage, but uh, when I was near making this dream come true, well, I became disillusioned because I love to sing opera and
Mm.
symphonic metal,
Oh
and
wow.
I heard that oh, I don't seem to be an opera singer, and I thought, okay, this is not cool. But one day, who knows? I'd love to perform at an opera house. It would be a plot twist to me.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be I mean, I think symphonic metal was a plot twist. I didn't know that existed, but yeah.
Okay. What's a book that has profoundly influenced your life?
Hmm. Uh, it's I remember this book. It's called The Courage of Being Disliked. Or let me look
Mhm.
it up. It's by a Japanese author. The Courage to Be Disliked, right?
Oh,
And
I think I know this book.
yeah, it's by this guy named Ichiro Kishimi, and it it really it's like this conversation between like this really angsty like kind of like guy, like this college student, and then this kind of like professor that follows Adlerian psychology. And it really goes into like the value of relationships, but then also being able to set boundaries and be able to develop your own persona separate from what other people want from you, right? So, kind of with my conversation earlier, it's like other people have these ideas for you, maybe for a different reason, but oftentimes because they think they know what's best for you. But then, you also it teaches you a lot about just like what relationships are, and then also how to navigate tough conversations, how to navigate parts where you want to go after something, but maybe some people don't agree with you, like your family or your friends or something like that, and then being able to find the value of that, right? It's like, hey, like I'm becoming my own person, but I also like consider our relationship valuable, and I feel like that's really hard to do nowadays. I feel like people are following the trends, right? Whether it's online or they're wanting to become like influencers or coaches, or make $1 million in like 5 days or something like that. Like these are all things that are sold to us, but I think the more meaningful part is to figure out who you are and your relationship with the world and the people inside it.
Um, I'm almost sure I downloaded the book, but I haven't started yet. It's on my Kindle.
Oh,
One day I'll
nice.
start.
There's an
Um,
audiobook, and since it's a conversation, it that's kind of how I listened to it, was just an
mm,
audiobook version, and it was awesome.
yes. Um, well, describe your perfect day off.
Perfect day off. Well, yeah, like so the app is going to be live this month actually. So it's going to be released at the end of this month, so I think it's going to be a lot different when I can have people download the app, right? But then a perfect day would be a day without work, honestly. Like, I'm not going to include my work in that day, but planning meetups with my friends or maybe new people through my app. And the activities that I would pick is enjoying the water, right? I really love the water. So, like swimming in the water, bringing my speaker out there and just like listening to music and having fun with friends. And then after that part of the day is over, then going home to grill some Korean barbecue. That's like my favorite food with my friends. And then yeah, like also meditate and walk my dog in the morning. But we already talked about that before. But yeah, like just being outside, getting some sunshine and some water, and then going home at night to get some dinner, and then maybe catching a show or a concert at night before going to bed.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm in South Hemisphere, and the perfect day for me is,
Oh yeah,
well, the winter is approaching.
right, right, yeah,
I
upside down.
love it's my favorite season of the year is the winter because well I love to wear jackets and to sit down and enjoy a great cup of cappuccino
Mm,
and maybe just maybe read and draw a little. That's what I like to
hmm.
do in my free time. And
Yeah.
go to the museum and go to museums. I'm a museum fan because not just because of the artwork, but well, it's really an inspiration to me. I remember one of the best art exhibitions was the one I saw from a very famous museum in Paris. They brought here their collection and I saw a Van Gogh. I cried. It was so
Mm,
so amazing to see. Oh, Starry Night is a very very famous work from Van Gogh, and I could see him in each piece of that
mm.
artwork. I love it to go to this exhibition.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and you know, I think there's different versions of perfect days too. Like I would love to do all those things as well. Like just
Yeah, you
chill
like
at
it
a
to go
coffee shop.
outside.
Yeah, chill at a coffee shop, go to a museum. I think the cool thing too is like you can have those perfect days right now, right? You just have to plan it
Oh,
in your calendar. Like you
absolutely.
can like I can go I mean this weekend was kind of like that, right? It's just going to the water and then having some Korean barbecue. Like I did that this weekend and had a great day. And yeah, I would love the same thing too, like going to the museum and then having some coffee. And I'm not a good drawer, I would say. Like that's not my gift. That's probably your gift. But yeah, like maybe like writing some lyrics out to songs and kind of doing something creative would be an awesome day too.
Great. And the last question from our lightning round. What's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
Yeah. Hmm. Uh, don't be so afraid, right? I think I think that would be if I could just yell that to me at my younger self, I would, because I think partly because of the outsider, like feeling like an outsider, and then like kind of relevant to that smart, but then when you're older, like being smart doesn't matter, right? It's about your work and how much hard work you put in. Um, like that definitely limited me in so many ways, right? Because I had these things and I knew that I was good at certain things, but because I was more concerned about being a perfectionist or like if I'm going to share it with other people, it has to be perfect or something like that. I would never put myself out there, right? I would be like, no, I'm just going to stay in my room and like work on these things until it's ready, right? But then that requires a lot of vulnerability, right? But it gets easier with time, right? Like even me with that first sales job of, pitching a pregnant woman in Walmart, like like that wasn't perfect. That didn't go perfectly, but that was the first step into becoming a better version of myself, right? And if you're not able to take that first step, then you're going to be in the same place. But then after the first step, it becomes a lot easier, right? You realize, like, oh, I'm not that bad. Like, I can get better at this. That's the other thing I learned, right? Is like, you can get better at anything that you want to do. But if you're always counting yourself out or not believing in yourself, no one's going to do it for you. Like no one's going to believe in you unless you believe in yourself. And I think if you're able to go over that fear with some courage and then get into, what you really want out of this life, then you have the chance at becoming who you were meant to be.
Well, amazing. Well, I have my version of your message to yourself, to your younger self. I would say to myself almost the same thing, but don't worry, things will go all right. Don't listen to
Right.
them. Uh,
Don't listen to them. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on one hand, it's like I wasn't it wasn't like an easy upbringing for me, but then like kind of like you said, right? It's all these things in your life happen for a reason. And when you're going through it at a young age, it's like this thing happened and then this thing happened and then this thing happened. And you're wondering like why is everything not working? Or you're just frustrated and it's like I tried all these different jobs and nothing's working out. Like where is my life going? Like with the comparison part, like why does my friend seem to have everything put together and me, I'm just feeling like my life is not starting or just getting started, right? But
mhm.
whenever you look back, you're able to connect the dots, right? So it's like I learned this lesson from this thing, or I learned this lesson from this experience, and all of those connections have led to where I am right now, right? And I think that's an easy thing to forget, and the society makes you it wants you to have this image of knowing everything and having everything put together, but um, but no one really knows. I mean, not no one, but it's like everyone doesn't know what the hell they're doing because there's so much uncertainty in the world. But if you're able to look at your own life and take those both painful and like celebration, painful experiences and celebrations, and then create a story out of that, I think your life begins to have a lot more meaning and begin to feel more fulfilled as well.
Yeah. Well, amazing. We talked for more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
I.
Sorry for talking. You can tell I talk
Oh,
a lot.
oh, that's okay. I talked a lot too. It was a delightful episode, and I think I would stay 1 more hour, but I have more tasks in my day, unfortunately. But thank you for coming to the KLA, for your interest. And I hope you enjoyed coming to this corner. And uh, well, now it's the bonus question. No more of those. The KLA's doors are always open to you. Would you come back one day if you could?
Yeah, of course. I had a fantastic conversation. I feel like I shared everything that I know right now, but hopefully by the next time I'll have learned some new
Oh,
lessons.
there is always a new theme and a new episode. I don't put some limits. It's everything free to my guests, and I lend my ear and my opinions. That's all I do during 2 seasons. But this podcast is turning 10, and I'm really happy for it.
Awesome. Awesome. I think, yeah, it's a thank you for kind of your presence. You have a very engaging presence and you ask some really great questions. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. And I wish you best of hope. Lastly, which platforms will your app will be available?
Yeah, so in terms of the app, it's going to be both on Android and iOS.
Yeah.
So anyone with a smartphone can use it, and I'm designing it so that anyone in the world can use it, right? So you don't have to be in the US, but for the next couple of months, I'm going to be trying it locally here in Austin. So I want people that I actually interact with on a daily basis to like really use the app and then see where it breaks so we can keep on building it. But yeah, if you do, so there's going to be different membership levels similar to a bunch of different apps. And if you want free membership of those premium features, then all you have to do is go to my website. It's www.aidoo.ai and fill out a survey. We have like a 5 minute survey that you tell us what activities that you're interested in, and then you get free membership whenever we actually launch. So that's kind of our promotion for you guys.
Great. Yeah, this is an international podcast. There are so many flags. I have the numbers. There are people from many countries of the world. And well, uh, I don't wish you best of luck because I heard from all my life that you wish luck for people who didn't study, who didn't work for it. But I wish you the best in your new venture. And I really hope you return in one day.
Yeah, yeah. I wish you the absolute best as well. And yeah, thank you for the well wishes, and it's been an awesome experience.
See you the next time.